Hello guys, what's up? So I just came across this video on TikTok. This man who was part of the South African army towards the end of apartheid just said something that shouldn't be a surprise to a lot of people. He claimed that a group of Zulu men were trained by the army and their sole mission was to create tribal conflicts around hostels in Johannesburg area. The plan was to make black people think they cannot coexist without conflicts, and the tribal tensions were supposed to keep them occupied with pushing each other around and forget about their common enemy, who is playing them like a game of chess. I want you to watch this video and tell me if you think this strategy worked.
Hey, I was a conscript in the South African Army in 1988 and 89. Used to have to do 2 years. 1989 was the last year of having to do 2 years of compulsory military service as Nelson Mandela was led out of jail and we moved towards the first free and fair elections in South Africa. But I was based up in northern Zululand near a town called Matubatuba in 121 Battalion, which was a Zulu battalion with a small cadre of white officers, but all the troops and a lot of the non-commissioned officers were Zulus. And one of the things that was going on in my area, because I was the law officer covering a very large area of northern Zululand up to the Swaziland-Mozambique border, was a small group of recce officers. That was like our equivalent of the SAS, Navy SEALs type soldiers, training local Zulu men to go up to the townships and the mine hostels around Johannesburg and in the Transvaal to deliberately foment racial tension and violence with other tribes based in those hostels and townships. And this was a very deliberate strategy of the South African government and the South African military at the time to create black-on-black violence, to detract from the potential for black-on-white violence, which in those days was very low because we had a very strong and violent police force repressing that side of things. But there was this massive deflection that went on right up until I left the army at the end of 1989. And a lot of white people don't know that, is that there was a very deliberate strategy, because what white people in South Africa at the time, and no doubt for some period afterwards, were often saying is, you know, these blacks can't run a country because they're always fighting each other. These tribes hate each other, right? The Zulus hate the Xhosas, who hate the Ndebele, who hate this guys, the Pondos, and this kept saying that basically that blacks were too violent to run a country. And what most people have no idea of is that violence, that intertribal violence, was fomented by the white South African government, army and police force very deliberately.